Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next 30 minutes. India expresses deep concern to the UK over External Affairs Minister Jaishankar's security breach in London, seeks strict action against the culprits. US rejects 26/11 Mumbai terror attack accused Tahavvur Rana's extradition stay plea. India says it's working closely with the US government to complete the necessary formalities. Kremlin says Russia may need to act on EU militarization plans, adds confrontational EU rhetoric not in sync with search for peaceful settlement to the Ukraine conflict. India has conveyed its deep concern to the UK authorities regarding the security breach by UK-based separatist and extremist elements during recent External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar's visit to their country. In a weekly press conference, MEA spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal said there is a larger context to the incident.
We have conveyed a deep concern to the UK authorities about the breach of security arrangements by UK-based separatist and extremist elements during External Affairs Minister's visit. There is a larger context to the incident, and it's important to understand that. It brings out both the license accorded to such forces as well as indifference to their intimidation, threats and other actions aimed at impeding our legitimate diplomatic activities in the UK.
On the question of US tariffs, the Indian spokesperson said during PM's visit to the US in February, both sides announced initiative a bilateral trade agreement.
During Prime Minister's visit to the United States in last month, that is on February 2025, both sides had announced that they will engage and negotiate a mutually beneficial multi-sector bilateral trade. The two governments are in the process of advancing discussions on a multi-sector bilateral trade agreement. Our objective through the BTA is to strengthen and deepen India-US two-way trade across goods and services, increase market access, reduce tariff and non-tariff barriers, and deepen supply chain integration between the two countries.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Mauritius on March 11th and 12th. In this weekly press briefing, MEA spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal informed that Prime Minister will attend the Mauritius National Day.
This is in regard to the visit of Prime Minister to Mauritius. On the invitation of the Prime Minister of Mauritius, Dr. Naveen Chandra Ramgoolam, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will pay a state visit to Mauritius on March 11th and 12th. 2025 to attend the National Day celebrations of Mauritius, which falls on 12th of March. As the chief guest, a contingent of Indian Defence Forces will participate in the celebrations along with a ship from the Indian Navy.
26/11 Mumbai terror attack accused Tahavvur Rana has received a major setback from the US Supreme Court. His petition to stop his extradition to India has been rejected, but within hours he submitted a renewed application seeking a stay of his extradition to India. 2008 Mumbai blasts were a series of coordinated terrorist attacks that took place in November 2008. 10 members of Lashkar-e-Taiba, a Pakistan-based terrorist organization, carried out shooting and bombing attacks lasting 4 days. 175 people died and 300 people were injured. Tahavvur Rana is a known associate of Pakistani-American terrorist David Coleman Headley, one of the main conspirators of the November 26th attacks in Mumbai in 2008. Tahavvur Rana had filed a petition in the US Supreme Court asking for an emergency stay on his extradition, but it was denied on Friday. In his application, Rana argued that he would not survive long enough to be tried in India due to various reasons. In addition to these concerns, Rana highlighted his deteriorating health. Earlier in February, US President Donald Trump announced the extradition of Thakur Rana to India and said that he would face justice. He made the announcement during a joint press conference with Prime Minister Narendra Modi following their bilateral meeting. And DD India's Jessica Taneja joins us on this press briefing just concluded by the Indian spokesperson of Ministry of External Affairs. Jessica, strong words said there by the spokesperson expressing India's deep concern on the security breach during Jaishankar's London visit.
That's correct. One among the many issues that we did touch upon is just keep briefing that concerns India and how certain issues are addressed. In a sense, also taking into consideration the concerns around the reciprocal tariffs that have been announced by President Donald Trump to, of course, the External Affairs Minister motorcade being targeted by radical extremists in the UK and the Indian side taking the concerns with the UK authorities and also expressing that the issue continues to persist despite voicing concerns about radical extremist groups in the past as well. So if you look at how the situation has evolved when it comes to the radical extremists, not just in the United Kingdom but also in Canada, or subject, this is something that the Indian authorities have taken up time and again when it comes to these radical elements that have acted against India's interests. And perhaps it's high time that India, wants to make sure that these issues are addressed as and when, and these concerns, especially these incidents that are being witnessed, especially with the External Affairs Minister, no less, of course, there's a very deep concern from what we've seen in the past. Also, the Joint Secretary of the External Affairs Ministry and also the spokesperson, Ranveer Jaishankar, Parliament Additional Secretary, and the spokesperson for the External Affairs Ministry also briefly touched upon the tariff concerns, and it has been one of the issues that has been raging when it comes to India-America relationship, where he did clarify and also give information to the effect that our Commerce Minister had visited the United States, met with his counterparts for a potential bilateral trade agreement, something that also came up during the Prime Minister's visiting to the states very recently, and also discussed the tariff and non-tariff barriers, especially when it comes to this whole result of reciprocal tariffs to take place on the 2nd of April. These issues are being discussed, but there are no more details provided to that effect. But we wait for April 2nd to see how things are worked out and how India-United States trade when it comes to goods and services continues to be in the upward trajectory.
Okay. And Jessica, also tell us what was said on the extradition of Thakur Rana.
Good, pardon me, I couldn't hear that bit. Could you repeat?
Yeah, I was saying what was said, if you could tell our viewers on the extradition of Thakur Rana.
Right, and when you heard from the External Affairs, from the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs just a short while ago, he said that yes, we've seen those reports, and in the past, President Trump has also made comments regarding this extradition. And remember that the joint statement was issued, he said that there are certain formalities that he's been allowed to appeal as being reported from the United States. Right now, the matter is being discussed, and soon, as per the last visit of the Prime Minister, the issue was taken up, and of course, the two sides, they say, are working together to complete necessary formalities. Meanwhile, in the US, where it's been allowed another appeal on the basis of certain issues that he has filed in his application, we'll have to wait and see on how that particular situation unfolds in the court in the United States. So that is what the Indian side also maintains, that there are certain formalities for his extradition to India, and Indian side is hopeful that it should come around soon, as it already has a nod from President Trump.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica Taneja, there covering this story for us. Moving on, more updates from India. On the occasion of Jan Aushadhi Divas today, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the first phase of the Namo Hospital in Silvassa with an aim to boost healthcare facilities in all corners of the country. Built at the cost of over 460 crore rupees, the hospital will significantly strengthen healthcare services in the Union Territory. It aims to provide state-of-the-art medical care to the people in the region, especially the tribal communities. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated and laid the foundation stone of multiple development projects for the Union Territory worth over 2,580 crore rupees at Silvassa. These include several infrastructure projects to improve connectivity, encourage tourism and create employment opportunities in the region. During the event, Prime Minister also distributed appointment letters under the Rozgar Mela and the benefits to the beneficiaries under PM Awas Yojana Urban, Gir Adarsh Ajivika Yojana and Silvan Didi scheme. Prasar Bharati delegation headed by CEO Gaurav Dwivedi met the Vice Chairman of National Television and Radio Company of Uzbekistan on Friday. At the meet, Dwivedi invited Vice Chairman Abdumanob Yuldashev to participate in WAVE Summit 2025, which is organized by India's Information and Broadcasting Ministry from 1st to 4th of May in Mumbai, Maharashtra. He also underlined the need of collaborating and exchanging content with Uzbekistan's National Television and Radio Company under the existing MOU between India and Uzbekistan.
Government of India, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting will be organizing a global summit called the World Audiovisual and Entertainment Summit, WAVES, in Mumbai this year from the 1st to 4th of May. We were here to invite the representatives and the top leadership of the National TV and Radio Company to participate in this summit, which will discuss various aspects of the media landscape during these 4 days.
And now we take a look at other stories making news in India today. Filing cases of money laundering, the Enforcement Directorate of India is conducting raids in various districts of Maharashtra, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. These raids are being conducted after a money laundering complaint filed by the Customs Department in Rajasthan. Large numbers of arms, ammunition and other miscellaneous items were surrendered by locals on the last day for voluntarily surrendering the looted and illegally held weapons in strife-torn Manipur on Thursday, informed the Manipur police. The government had given a deadline of Thursday, adding that no punitive action will be taken against those who heed to the call. The 2025 edition of Indian Navy's capstone theatre-level operational exercise TROPEX came to a close in early March. Conducted from January to March, the exercise provided a valuable evaluation of the Navy's ability to respond to multifarious challenges in a synchronized and integrated manner to defend national maritime security interests. Blending vibrant murals with the evolution of weather science, India's first open-air art wall museum at Mausam Bhavan celebrates the 150-year legacy of India Meteorological Department IMD. The exhibition showcases IMD's crucial role in saving lives and shaping India's socio-economic development journey. You're watching DD India Live, still to come on the show. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese cancels announcement for national election as the country braces for Cyclone Alfred. And an unexploded World War II bomb near the busiest station of Paris disrupts metro train traffic. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Tanvi Taneja. On to some international news now. The Kremlin said on Friday that Russia may need to act to respond to what it called European Union plans to militarize the bloc that cast Russia as its main adversary. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters that Moscow says that the European Union is now actively discussing the militarization of the EU and the development of the defense segment. He added that this is a process that they are watching very closely because the EU is positioning Russia as its main adversary. Peskov further stressed that the confrontational rhetoric and the confrontational thinking that they are now seeing in Brussels and in the European capitals is seriously at odds with the mood for finding a peaceful settlement around Ukraine. European leaders on Thursday backed plans to spend more on defense and continue to stand by Ukraine in a world upended by Donald Trump's reversal of US policies. While Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has said that the EU cannot afford to finance Ukraine's military efforts as US financial aid is no longer guaranteed. The leaders of 26 EU countries signed a statement voicing support for Ukraine without Hungary. Orban has refused to send weapons to Ukraine since the start of the war and kept close relations with Moscow. He said the way the EU wants to support Ukraine now, while also boosting Europe's own defense spending, would ruin Europe.
If a war has been going on for 3 years and 26 European states and the US jointly supported Ukraine and still the Russians are winning on the front line and now the US quits financing the war, why would the other 26 member states have a chance to take this war to the end? It is a nice thing to help and the Ukrainians need help, but we cannot help them if we get ruined in the meantime.
Ezt a folyamatot időben meg kell állítani.
Meanwhile, US-Ukraine talks will be held in Saudi Arabia next week. US President Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, said that he's in discussions with Ukraine for a peace agreement framework to end hostilities with Russia and that a meeting is planned next week with the Ukrainians in Saudi Arabia. Trump and Zelensky had acrimonious talks at the White House on February 28th, but since then, the two sides have resumed work on a revenue-sharing minerals deal. At his speech to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday, Trump said that he had received a letter from Zelensky in which the Ukrainian leader said he was ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible. So as EU leaders signed off on a move to loosen the bloc's budget rules to allow member countries to increase their defense spending late on Thursday. Joining us with more on this is DW correspondent Chipunda Chimbelu. Chipunda, how much of an impact will these plans have?
It's hard to predict just how much money the looser borrowing rules will free up. What is clear is that it could help jumpstart the EU economy, which has been stagnating in recent years. And we have already seen that this week, at least here in Germany, there's plans to take on more government debt, and that is not just about defense spending. The politician most likely to become Germany's next chancellor, Friedrich Merz, proposed a spending plan for 900 billion euros this week, and just over half of that is actually for infrastructure. Now, that move has, of course, been cheered by markets and most economists who have been calling on Berlin to take on more debt, especially amid the country's most recent economic downturn. Now, the hundreds of billions of euros in defense spending that are planned, of course, could affect inflation, economic growth, and debt levels, especially elsewhere in Europe, where sovereign debt levels are much higher than here in Germany. So it will, of course, be interesting to see how EU countries navigate spending around defense with higher government debt levels.
Chiponda, also tell us what more can we expect now from the EU?
We got a bit of a sense of that from the European Central Bank. Now, on Thursday, it lowered the benchmark interest rate to 2.5%, and that was the sixth cut since June last year. And the ECB made that move to help stimulate the EU economy, which is, of course, stuttering because of lower exports, weak investments, and uncertainty around global trade. Now, the European Central Bank expects the EU's GDP to grow just 0.9% this year. And whether the billions in defense spending will be enough to spur the European economy will also depend on other factors like global trade and any potential tariffs from the US. The ECB's latest focus doesn't factor in the amounts of spending that have been announced this week. So we may, of course, need to watch what policymakers say over the coming weeks to get a better sense of where they believe the EU economy is headed.
Thank you, Chiponda, for all those updates. Chiponda Chimbelu reporting from DW Berlin. Moving on. Tropical cyclone Alfred is set to hit Australia's east coast on Saturday, bringing heavy rain, strong winds and massive waves. Thousands of residents, especially in Queensland and New South Wales, have been told to prepare or evacuate. Overnight, power was cut, breaches were eroded and airports were closed due to the storm's impact. Winds over 100 kilometers per hour hit the coastal areas and authorities are warning people not to be complacent. Alfred is currently about 200 kilometers offshore and is expected to land as a Category 2 storm. The slow-moving system could bring prolonged heavy rainfall, increasing the risk of flooding and damage. Residents are advised to stay indoors, follow official warnings and evacuate if needed. Meanwhile, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese ruled out calling a national election for April on Sunday or Monday as had been expected. This decision was taken so that his government can focus on this approaching cyclone in Queensland state. A national election must be held by mid-May and had been expected for April so that the government could avoid delivering a national budget forecast to show a deficit. On to Europe again. An unexploded bomb dating back to the Second World War was discovered near Paris's Gare du Nord railway station on Friday. This led to disruption in several train services, including local metro lines, commuter rails and national and international trains. Authorities said that the bomb was found 2.5 kilometers from the train station in the middle of the tracks. Meanwhile, train traffic would be disrupted until demining operation was completed. An AI-powered dreaming room by Turkish-American artist Refik Anadol was unveiled at the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao city of Spain on Thursday. Under the name Living Architecture Gehry, the artist Anadol used artificial intelligence to reinterpret the architectural legacy of Frank Gehry, the designer of the museum. This model is aimed at dynamically translating Gehry's architectural vocabulary into ever-evolving forms, colors and movements. Inside the gallery, nearly 50 projectors presented the artwork at a high resolution of 20,000 pixels. This showcased 25 million collected images of nature and Gehry's work. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. You can also get the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.